All right, we are live again, and welcome to our session with Jessica Smalls. I'm super excited for this session because I love manifestation. I am just understanding the principles of Sharmanism, and I love that Jessica brings these two commodities together. So, Jessica, welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of this Wellness Weekend. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and how you sort of bring these two worlds together?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited
Absolute
in
pleasure.
this early morning. So happy I didn't sleep in.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, so I was kind of born very different. I was very aware that I was very different than most people, at least that I lived around at the time while I was growing up. Um, and my life led me into all kinds of um, struggles
Mm,
as I speak with other people that have um, kind of embraced themselves and moved forward with their life. I find that they struggled a lot with inner stuff.
mhm,
So I struggled with mental health and I struggled with medical health for most of my life. But I had this little voice inside me telling me I was important. There was something that I needed to do, and really that I needed to help people. So that transitioned. I often refer to my life and what I learned, which is why I go back so far, to be my whole life is my story of learning how to help people. So I that brings me to now, and I help majority of the people that I help are women, and I really help them kind of identify what it is that keeps them separate from who they really are. So I help people go down deep into their heart space, and from there live from that place, learn to live from there instead of from our head. um, so it really is the incorporating the shamanic work of taking the path from head to heart, and then walking the red road as as we were taught. And it's that living through the principles of shamanism, in doing no harm to ourselves or to others, um, in being true to yourself. So being as honest as possible with ourselves, because sometimes we're just not. And from little children, I found we weren't always taught um, to be honest. We actually learned to take someone else's word for our feelings and discredit our feelings. So our feelings are really what manifestation is all about. So if I found when I connect my whole life with what I'm wanting, that really comes together. So I connect people with their heart, and then it's always different, but the similarities between journeys that people take to get to where they want to be, um, is really about spending time with these shamanic principles and metaphorically going through um, the things we need to get through. Um, the presenter before, what was her name?
Jamie.
Jamie. Um, and Jamie shared quite a bit of background information that I would normally cover.
Oh, that's good. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good to like launch from. Um, yeah, so in a nutshell, I help people rise up in themselves, and then teach them the principles of manifestation. And the principles I use are getting clean and clear about what it is you want, and sometimes that's identifying what you don't want, because sometimes that's easier for people, um, and coming into the foundation of what I call the foundation of fire. Um, it's a book I wrote in 2017. It's called Foundation of Fire: How to Step into Your Personal Power and Manifest Your Dreams. Um, and that outlines how to tap into your intuition and kind of rise up in yourself and know that you're enough. Um, and once we develop our understanding of our enoughness, that's when manifestation is quite simple. We make it really difficult, but it's really really simple. But again, that has to come from a place of feeling and connection within ourselves. So if we're not really expressing ourselves or really connected with who we are inside, then manifesting is hard because we're not really in alignment, or we're not aware of the alignment that we need to move forward and call forward what we want into our life.
I'm taking notes because um and I know, sorry, because sometimes I'm like, my head is like that, but you have just given me like a page and a half already. So guys, if you have questions, please jump in, because this manifestation thing, I don't want to say thing, but topic, it's one that I absolutely love, because it's, for me, if you can desire something and align with it easily, but effortlessly, and then call that into your life, I feel like that will just take away the struggles of how life is, of how life is sort of played out. And we had a guest on this morning, Sarupa, and she was talking about bringing creativity and play into manifestation, specifically around money. And I really believe things are, purposed as they should be at the right time. And that's definitely something that I don't play. I'm not like, I don't tap into creativity that much. But then you spoke about a couple of things. So connecting to ourselves and expressing ourselves in order to be able to align, and develop, so that we can develop an understanding of our enoughness. So this is something that's quite personal to me, because some things that I want to manifest, like, I don't feel like I'm enough for that. Right. I always feel like I have to do more to be able to get there. And I hope I'm not the only one, but I'm going to be completely vulnerable in these sessions, because I think if I am, then it will help somebody. And if not, at least it will help me. So, so how do you fix that? Because if you, and I know that a lot of, and particularly a lot of women, um always feel that they've got to give more and more and more to feel like then they're deserving of something. Like, I always feel like I need to overgive in order to feel deserving of something before I manifest, or I have to be perfect before I feel like I can call something in. So how do you work with that? How do you change that?
Well, I'm just going to address it as though I'm talking right to you because you've asked the question. It's a little bit easier that way. Um, so the first is that if you're if you think whatever we think is, so if you're thinking that you have to do all of these things to have a process perfect before you will allow yourself to accept what you're wanting to manifest, then what you're doing is you're sabotaging yourself in a perfectionist mentality. And really, if we go back, Sheila, to what Sheila was saying,
Sarupa.
sorry,
Sarupa. Sarupa.
Sarupa. No,
Mm.
sorry, the woman before us,
Oh, Jamie.
Jamie. If we go back to what Jamie was saying, that's part of how we talk to ourselves in our mind. So if you're having perfectionist beliefs, then you have perfectionist thoughts and you have perfectionist actions. Okay, so it goes back to as a child, who told you that everything had to be perfect for you to get what you want? Who told you that? And so that's where, you have to go deep inside yourself and ask yourself, who is that, my belief, or is that, my parents' beliefs or my grandparents' beliefs? Um, and so what I do with people is I start to help them deconstruct that. So usually people can go, "Oh, I know exactly who said that to me." And they can pinpoint it. And that makes it really helpful, because then I teach a little tool. It's called the magic hand. Um, so I say, raise your right hand, and this is your magic hand. It's shamanically, it's the right side of the body is the doing side, it's the masculine side, and the feminine side or the left side is the being side. So this is where we practice our craft, and this is where we do the work. So the right hand is the magic hand, and I say our mind is like a screen, so to speak, just like all our tablets and devices. And when we swipe left, we delete whatever's going on there. So if when you find yourself in the thought patterns of, no, I have to do this and this and this and this, and then I can manifest that thing, or I have to have these things perfect, then I would say every time a thought comes up like that, you raise your right hand and you grab the thought on the screen of your mind and throw it in the metaphysical garbage can. And as many times as you need to grab that and throw it away, it's actually a form of neuro linguistic reprogramming, that we move our body and you can say, like, nope, that's not mine. And it's effectively rejecting that pattern of thought. And then you get to repattern yourself with what you want. So a mantra that would be helpful, or an intention that would be helpful, is I am enough. So rather than, going and getting right into the weeds and pulling all the weeds out and then looking at your basket of weeds and going, what am I going to do with all this stuff? You just go right to, no, no, that's not my thought. I am enough. I deserve this. Yeah, because so much of what I feel we get stuck in, because I get stuck in the same pattern occasionally. And I just go back to I am enough, because I know that my enoughness and everyone's enoughness comes from when we're children and how we're nurtured or not nurtured.
Can I push back with a little bit? So what if so you're
Absolutely.
doing the this is a good conversation. You're doing you do the, it's the right hand swipe, put it in the bin, right? Okay.
Yes.
Um and you clear that. I get that. But if you have been programmed from young to never believe that you're enough or that you're deserving, how do you then work through that to actually not just say the words, but actually to believe it and feel it in the core of your being that you are enough and that you are deserving? Because it's not just like you say it and it happens, right? And almost like it's creating, like, I would say that's creating like an energy block there, because you're saying something that you don't believe, so you don't trust yourself, and it's just like the whole thing is just like, you
For
know.
sure. For
mm,
sure. So
mm-hmm.
that brings me back to like the very first step, and it's how I support people to rise. So rise can stand for reboot. So we need to reboot our systems. We need to reboot our life. If we're not in alignment, we need to reboot. And that means we slow down, like the turtle in the hare story. We always get where we want faster if we take one little teeny step at a time. Um, and that means we put ourselves first. So it's a lot of like forcing ourselves to see that we are important, which can be more of a block for some people. The next is finding the I. So whenever, so I'm just remembering back, because it's been a while since I've gone through the foundational steps again. Um, but I find when I slow down, that's when I can start asking myself, okay, what do I need right now? Because in my growing up years, nobody asked me those questions. I didn't get those questions asked to me till I was in my 20s. So putting ourselves first is like a sovereign act of rebellion almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we really need to find where we are in that and develop our own sense of balance. Um, and that it really comes from, for me anyways, balance came from creating a space for me, which is the third, the S in rise, is creating a space for myself where I could go and I could, scream or cry or do any of the things that help me express. And expression is the theme throughout all of the things I teach. But it's really important in the first step to begin expressing yourself in some way, even if that is acknowledging, I don't feel like I'm enough. But from my experience, the only way to step into that enoughness and come to a belief in it is to give ourselves little bits um, of time and space. So, because we're the ones that have to show ourselves that we're enough. This is the conundrum of it all. No one outside of us can really show us that we're enough unless you step into the teachings of your children are your teachers. If we step into that teaching, then our children love us unconditionally, and most of the time we have no idea why.
It's true.
Because we spend so much time in our head judging
Yeah.
what we're doing, but that came from our childhood and what we learned from people that maybe were unhealed. So sometimes I can kind of hijack my brain and go to my kids and I'll ask them, um, what is it that you love about me? And um, it seems kind of odd because my parents would never have asked me that question. And I used to have a lot of judgment around it. But what I found was my kids were like, it was so easy for them to tell me all the wonderful things they felt about their mom. And it reminded me about the wonderful things I thought about my mom. And it brought me to an understanding that, knowing my mother's path, how hard it must have been for her. And then I go, oh, okay, no, I don't want to repeat that pattern. I go, okay, I'm gonna express it out loud. I'm gonna take those moments for myself, and I'm gonna find my balance, and I'm going to try a million things because I did try a million things before I found shamanism. I was trying everything.
And what's the E?
Oh, I cannot hear you now.
No, can you hear me now? Can you hear
Oh
me now?
no.
Can anybody hear me?
Oh yes, now I can.
Yay! I was like, no. Okay. What's the E stand for in
The
Ryan?
E is express.
Express. Okay. So
Express. So it's your feelings. And again, we kind of run around the same kind of bush with all the parts of rise, and it's that we weren't allowed. Someone at some point told us to be quiet. Someone at some point told us that we're too much or we're too emotional, especially for women. We are emotional beings, and so are men. And we need to be expressing ourselves and letting it out, because as I've learned in my journey, which is a completely different story, that when we don't let our feelings out, they stay trapped in our body and create dis-ease. And that's something that can really block us in other ways. So expressing is really important. So, and if it's not, screaming something out when you actually feel angry, sometimes it's just identifying that you have feelings that are angry, or um, whatever the feelings are that you're feeling in the moment, because a lot of people never had the opportunity to identify them in the first place. They were just told what they felt and moved along. So expression is key. And then that takes me through the foundation of fire that I talk about in the book, and expressing yourself and feeling um, is really important for getting clean and clear about your own thoughts and behaviors, because it's our thoughts and behaviors that need to be in alignment so that what we do want gets projected more so in the beginning than what we don't want. Does that answer your question?
it does, yeah, and it feels like you have to do that inner work almost if you're in that place of not feeling enough, going back to the root cause and finding out why, and then you have to believe that you're enough. You're not looking to get that justification or approval from anybody else. And so I think the space and time element with giving yourself Both of those allows it to sink authentically into your being. So you're not just saying, "Oh, I'm enough," but you're giving yourself time to sort of prove or find confirmation that you are. So there was one question that I had with, so when you said moving from the head to the heart,
Yes.
we're very much in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
And even from a place of love, sometimes they say, think with your head, not your heart, right? So I think and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, for me, my experiences in society are, don't think with your heart, don't be led with your heart. It's too emotional. It's not reliable. You have to think with your head. So I'm assuming that's the wrong way around. Yes?
That is the opposite.
Exactly. Right. So how do you change that? What's the process there?
The process there is uh, the key is feeling,
Okay.
and it's to understand, at least from my understanding, was that I was raised through reverse conditioning. My parents used like reverse psychology on me all the time because I was kind of a rebellious kid. So they
Mm-hmm.
knew if they told me no, don't do that, I was definitely going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit about me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I find in society, like when I look, because my brain is trained to see patterns everywhere. So when I look out into society, first of all, I don't see myself as part of it. I see myself as separate from what's going on, especially right now. I had to like kind of remove myself for my own safety. But I see society as um, using reverse psychology to condition people to operate a certain way. And when we look at the history of um, society, just in the last couple hundred years, that I've looked into, we see a huge disconnect from anything that's heart centered to shove everyone up into this place, which is ripe with fear and conditioning. Our hearts aren't conditioned. So to take the path from head to heart is an everyday practice of rising and an everyday practice of the foundation of fire. For me, that's what it
From
was.
head to heart.
It was, yeah, to get from head to heart, it was a constant um, one foot in front of the other of slowing down and finding my balance every day, sometimes multiple times a day, to come back to who I was, because prior to doing this, I didn't know who I was because I grew up not knowing. I grew up disconnected. So to come back, yeah, it was just practicing and practicing and practicing, coming back to myself and asking myself, and even tapping. If I wasn't sure if I was coming from my heart, I would tap my heart and I would take some deep breaths and I would ask myself, is this coming from my heart? And what I found over time was that there's this little spirit voice in my mind that I would hear, but it whispers. It doesn't yell over top any of the other voices in our minds. It's the whisperingest voice in there. And that's the one we have to listen to. It's the one that shows up first. So when I'm on the journey from head to heart, um, tuning into honesty with myself, listening to that spirit voice of mine that says, "Oh, Jessica, you're doing it again." Or, you know what, refocus. You still need to refocus. Um, and honestly, when you're in your heart, if you're crying.
Hey, I was just gonna ask, how do you know when you're in your heart? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So
you're
you tap
you're
into
in
the
your
emotional
heart when
side.
you're crying. It can, and it's different for everybody. Some people, but it is a massive, massive feeling. It's a feeling, like it's palpable. You can sometimes describe it, um, but you know it when you're there. Like no one's asking, "Am I in my heart?" Because if you're asking, you're thinking, right? So it's coming from knowing. Being in our heart comes from knowing, whereas being in our head is about thinking.
But then it also brings in, and guys, I hope you guys have some juicy questions for Jessica, but it also it also brings uh, into question that trust with yourself, being able to tap into intuition and being able to even hear that small still voice, right? Because if we are in our heads, you silence that voice. So would you say that slowing down is one of the things that you can do? Like how do you develop that sense of trust? Because this all ties into manifestation, right? Because if you're aligning and you're doing what the heart is leading you to do, then everything just sort of flows. But before you even get there, you have to be able to trust yourself, to know your intuition, to know when this is right, this is wrong, and not to question that at all. Because I've shown Vivi times when I've, my intuition strongly said no, don't do it, and I got into my head and I'm like, okay, and you reason it out and you go against what your intuition says, and it's put me into trouble, and she's seen it. And so from a very young age, she's been really lucky to see when I go against my intuition, when I go against my inner knowing, what happens. And I feel so blessed for that, because she now knows that when it's a yes, it's a yes, and when it's a no, never to question that. But how do you develop that trust with yourself to be able to trust your intuition, so that you can get into that heart space and you can hear that voice?
So, um, trusting yourself, it comes out of the rise part of
Mm-hmm.
what I do with people. So in the space, when we provide space for ourselves, because and it happens metaphorically too, because I do take people on shamanic journeys. We create a safe space in our mind or in another dimension, wherever that is. Still
Mm-hmm.
unlearning how to talk about it so it's not the mind, because it really is a heart space.
Mm-hmm.
um, so what I support people to do is to come from the three commitments principle. So you have three commitments in your life, and you those three commitments are to yourself, and you're responsible for keeping them. And once you keep your three commitments, you start to develop trust. You start to trust yourself that you'll do what you said you would do.
Right. Is this something that you do daily, or just in
Sorry, I can't hear you again.
the three? Can you hear me? No, you can't hear me.
I can hear
Yes,
you
okay.
now.
I don't know what's going on. I can see when I see what you mean, because when I'm speaking, my little box lights up. And sometimes it doesn't. So I'm just wondering if it's the Wi-Fi. So sorry.
That's okay.
But the three commitments, those are things that you're doing daily. Those are three daily commitments that you set out, or just a general way of living. No.
Well, it depends. It depends for everybody. So, like, my three commitments are generalized areas of my life that I'm committed to. When I first started, though, my first commitment was to wake up and look after myself. And that meant feed myself and water myself and bathe myself. Because at that time in my life, those were not things that I was doing first. I would get up and look after my kids, and then I'd be empty, so it's really about and whatever the commitments are to each person. The book goes over way more detail, but getting it down to three commitments so that you're very simplistic in your life. And what we realize is most of us have so many responsibilities that it's impossible to put ourselves first because we have overburdened ourselves with responsibilities. And if we're
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're overburdened with responsibility, it's really hard to keep our commitments to ourselves because all our responsibilities are out there and our commitments are in here. And we've been trained to fulfill our responsibilities to others before we keep our commitments to ourselves. So it's really we have to like reverse and unlearn all of these things that we learned growing up so that we can teach our children, you know what, if just like you said, when I'm following my intuition, my kids get to see, because my kids see the same thing. I'm very vocal and transparent about everything that's going on. So when they know, and they'll point out to me now, oh no, mommy, I thought you said no to that. And I'll go, oh, right. Yes, I did. But as a result, they end up following their intuition, and they end up being very clear about how they feel, because I'm not there telling them that's not how they feel. And because I'm trying to do the same thing on my own.
Does anybody have any questions, or am I okay to keep shooting away? Oh my god, our time. Um, I haven't.
That went by really fast.
Yeah, I really fast. Okay, talk to me about shamanism and how that the shamanic methods of manifesting, or how you bring shamanic principles into manifesting, are different from what you would find in traditional manifesting, which to me, it's, vision boards, and ask, believe, receive, and feel. And there's this book by Sharman. I don't know, I mentioned him to you before, and I find like he's a shaman. I love his stuff. And it goes into like little like rituals that you can do, and his way of manifestation and law of attraction and energy work, it's completely different to what you would find in traditional manifestation. But what I found that it really resonated with me, especially as a Christian, and shamanism is very different to that, and I felt like almost like, oh, I shouldn't be touching this stuff because I'm a Christian and this is teaching us to do rituals, which, it's very anti, Christ. But as I look more into understanding energy and manifestation, etc., especially in the times that we're in now, for me, it's even more important to get the manifestation techniques and just to have it be a part of me rather than something I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
um I find it really interesting. So can you explain a little bit more about how you differ as someone embodying the principles of manifestation from a shamanic side work?
Yeah.
That makes
It's,
sense.
yeah, it is. It does
Yeah.
make sense. I'm just trying to, like, you can see my face trying to figure it out. Um, because I've worked with shamanic everything, and it's who I am. It's difficult for me to tease out what is that and what is not. Um, so,
So tell
mm,
us what you do then. What are your manifestations? So if I wanted to
yeah,
manifest something really big right now, so I know that some of us in the group um are,
yeah,
how do you walk us through what a manifestation practice would be if we're trying to call something in? It's different if it's something small, because, like, for example, right,
hmm,
I was listening to this talk on Clubhouse, and this is part of the manifestation thing. And it was talking about letting go, connecting with your guides and angels. And I asked a question. I was like, I've tried to do that, and nothing's happened. And she's like, ask for something really small, something insignificant, but something so different that you know that it had to be that. So I said, okay, I want to see a purple feather. And at first, I was like looking for this purple feather everywhere, right? And this is just so that I know that when I say something out, because they say words of energy, you say something, it happens, it creates, life, vibration, etc. Part of
yeah.
manifestation. And it's like, I want to find my purple feather. And I held on to it and I let it go. And guess what? Yesterday I was playing blocks with Vivi, or we were making a village, and I saw my purple feather. And I was like, oh my God, like this stuff actually works, because I played with her blocks yesterday. There was no purple feather there. Um, Anyways, I diverge. So how would you do it?
So I'm just going to pick out of what you said. The very most important part is you let it go,
Exactly, because it was
and then
something
it's showed up.
small. It was something
Yeah,
small. But if it was something
even
big,
even with big stuff, letting it go is probably the most important part, because when do we learn to let go of anything? So what I do, I do some breath work, because that's what brings me into my heart space. So manifestation happens from the heart space, does not happen from your head. If you find yourself wondering how this is going to happen, you need to, like, magic hand that stuff until that goes
okay.
away. Tap your heart,
Okay.
do some breath work, grounding exercises until you can feel yourself dipping into your body. Um, I spend a little bit of time in meditative space, and that's specifically to get really clear about what I want. And while I'm in that space, I'm visualizing what it is that I want. I'm not talking out loud. I'm not thinking out loud. I'm just breathing and seeing. And then at some point, when I feel the vision is clear for me, then I start to breathe into the vision and I start to activate the feelings of what it would be like when I have that. Now, once I feel that, it depends. I go with my intuition there. And my intuition's very strong, and it wasn't always, but the more you cultivate your intuition, the stronger it'll be. Um, so I would sit in the feeling until I feel like I'm done feeling it. And from that point, then I take it all. I have like a purple bubble visualization that I do where I take my entire vision and all the feelings I was feeling and I breathe them into this balloon or a bubble. And I watch that bubble float away. And what I see it doing is passing through all the dimensions to all of our helpers and guides because they all exist on different dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
And they open it up and I release it to them with the intention that they're going to do the making it happen part.
I like that.
That I'm not, that I release myself. So it's very similar to, because I was raised in Christian faith and
Mm-hmm.
then I found shamanism. So my foundation is church based.
Mm-hmm.
And so remaining in faith
Mm-hmm.
once you request your what you're wanting to manifest, once you send out that rocket of desire, remaining in faith and being grateful are the two most important things to do because our emotions are creating the vibration that allows what we've wanted to come back to us. So if we're in alignment with what we've asked for, it will come and it comes fast. When we're in alignment, it comes fast. It's our mind that puts limits on it.
I don't know if anybody would have this question. Does a, if you're in
I think you
alignment,
just
is
have to lean forward a little bit.
oh, I'm leaning forward.
No.
Okay, I don't know what is wrong with this thing. So in a being in alignment also means being on purpose, right? Meaning that
Yes.
you're okay, that's clicked it for me. That's made a lot of sense. So what I'm purpose to do, what's meant for me, once I come into that sort of vibration, that feeling, if it's for me, if it's the right thing for my particular path, then that whole process works. And in traditional manifesting, um, I have never come across where they say, you know, breathe it into a purple bubble and let it go through every sort of dimension and release it to higher energies. I think that's quite nice because it takes away your having to do anymore. You know, you felt it as much as you can feel it. You put everything into that bubble, you breathe life into it, you let it go. I love that. Um, in terms of, and this is my final question, in terms of, I think, um, vibration, that's something that's thrown around a lot. And you know, they say you've got to be in the right vibrational frequency, you have to vibe high in order to call things in. Okay, yeah. Talk to me about vibration.
So
Okay, I know you.
vibration is feeling. So is it possible to manifest from a depressed state? Absolutely, it is. We manifest all the time. All of us manifest all the time. When I was in depressed states, I had thoughts of, worries about bills and what would come. More bills would come. And obviously, those are coming anyways. But it was more of a training my mind where to look. So when I was manifesting from those places, manifesting great things wasn't always possible because I couldn't even imagine them. I couldn't feel what it would be like to have them. Once I could tune into my feelings, then I could get it. So our vibration is really how we're feeling. And if we can raise our vibration, it doesn't mean we need to avoid anger. It doesn't mean we need to avoid feeling bad. It means we need to acknowledge when we feel low and be on purpose to raise our vibration because we deserve to feel good, you know? So for me, I don't really put limits on it. I just naturally do it. But at first, I had to put a limit on when something happened that wasn't ideal. How long would I complain about it? How long would I sit in that energy? And eventually, over time, it just felt gross to sit in that. So now, when something happens that isn't ideal for me, I go, oh my gosh, okay, where's the silver lining here? Where can I redirect my attention? So I'm always saying I'm looking for silver linings and rainbows because that helps me train my mind to think in just a completely different way because it's so easy to catastrophize things. I feel like that is um, our naturally conditioned.
Yeah, it's a yeah, the natural
Yeah,
go-to. Yeah, you always
yeah.
find like the worst thing first. Yeah, but you're doing it, finding the silver lining, finding, looking for the good, the lesson, the reason why this has happened. I love that. I really love that. Okay, one more question for me. Now, in terms of how, and that's been really helpful with the vibration thing because it takes away the pressure of having to have everything you feel good all the time and be happy peppy and be positive. It's also allowing every emotion as they come up to do what they're meant to do, acknowledge them and let them go. And I guess being human it is about being able to properly process all the emotions that we feel on a day-to-day basis without having judgment about anything. And I think it's the judgment that makes us feel really crappy about the lower state vibrations, right? Vibrational energies. When looking to manifest things like money and abundance and prosperity, how do you approach that? Or do you approach it the same way that you would everything else?
I approach it exactly the same way. So
Hmm.
when I'm asking for, well, I'll just share the experience I had.
Yeah,
So I
please.
wanted to we were in a tight financial situation. We needed
Hmm.
to be free. We all
Hmm.
felt, our children and my husband and I all felt like we needed to be free.
Hmm.
So we all sat down together because group manifesting is way more powerful than individual manifesting.
All right. Okay.
Um, and we sat down and said, okay, what do we want to do? And it was, well, we need to sell our house. And okay, well, what do we want to do once we sell our house? Well, we want to move and go north. And then it changed, and we wanted to buy a truck and trailer and travel. So from the day I felt that it was time, we put our house up for sale. 7 days later, we sold our house.
So
Um,
fast.
3 weeks later, we moved into our new house that we just rent we have a short lease for 10 months.
Hmm.
2 weeks later, right after I said to my husband, now you're going to rest for a while, right? In his
Mhm.
resting period, he bought a truck and trailer that were like right close to each other, like literally down the road from one another in another city. Um, and that was all, um, that it all just happened because we kept faith in our path, and that's what we were doing. Um, I think I'm forgetting the point of your question.
No, we were talking about manifesting money, and you said it was the same, exactly the same
Yes.
thing, group manifestation,
Yes, so
and
I
yeah,
don't see I don't see money as a separate thing. I see money as energy.
I love that. Yeah.
So
Mm.
money is just what we happen to be physically using as a manifestation itself of what the energy transfer is, right? So if you can come to an understanding that money and abundance is already there for us, we just have to change our thinking about, how to get it to come in or go out, that it's always here. It just changes.
Mm.
um, like I've had times where I've been on my knees praying with no money because we've been in lots of different life circumstances in my family. And within 3 days, money would show up on our kitchen table. I literally had a friend walk into my house that said, I don't know why I'm here, But and she put an envelope of cash on our table just before Christmas, maybe 5 years ago. And I went, holy crap. And then I called her and let her know kind of our backstory. And then she gave more. Like it's just what, so that's kind of the stuff I've been doing, but I had to feel it. Like if I hadn't been on my knees crying on the floor when I
Mm.
was asking the universe for money. And that's it too. I'm not asking someone to give me something. I'm asking the universe to provide for us because we provide for others. And it's more like a reconnecting things back together the way they ought to be. um, Something you said though was about balance. It's not about being positive all the time or thinking the right thing or feeling the right thing. It has to do with our what what we believe balance is. And I kind of came to this understanding when I was writing about it, that balance isn't about being in the center all the time. Balance is dynamic. Balance is being able to flow through everything we experience without feeling like we're in the wrong spot, because we're always on our path and we're always in the right place.
Can you hear me now? Yes, you can hear
Yeah.
me. I can see what's happening. I love that. That's really freeing, knowing that balance doesn't mean everything has to be like that. You can just it's the flow, right? It's moving along with it's very fluid. And that feels very freeing, and that feels really good. It doesn't feel as stoic as balance, like you're just right in the middle all the time, and neutral. That's brilliant. Um any questions, guys, before we wrap up? Because I know we have one more talk at 3 and a little break in between. Any questions from anybody? I know Rafina wanted to know the name of your book. Jessica, do you want to pop that in the chat,
Yes, I will do that.
please?
And
I
it's
have
all,
enjoyed that. So I have some different things to try this evening with these manifestation talks that we've had, and that's been really, really, really helpful, especially sharing your journey. And I think from you, I get that sense of just being at peace with what is and not trying to force things to be. I think that's the sort of energy I pick up from you with how you approach, I guess, life in general. You're just very calm and just, in yourself, which is good. It's refreshing to see.
yeah, thank you. And that's really what it is. Like when we can just be okay and comfortable in our skin with ourselves, everything kind of happens for us.
Mm,
It really, really does.
I love that.
It really
Beautiful way
does.
to end. Thank you so much. Can you tell everyone where we can connect with you on social media, Instagram or Facebook, or I don't know where else, your website as
Yeah,
well?
so I run a business called Spirit Academy. You can find that online at yourspiritacademy.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then the services I offer, like I offer Rise and Manifest sessions. I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing Manifest Mondays, where I share some free information about the way that I manifest. And then I have a Manifest Master Circle where we get together and practice the manifestation principles. That's my favorite one.
It's on Facebook.
On Yes, on Facebook.
Okay.
So it's in the Spirit Academy page
Okay. I'm
there.
just
So
putting it on the chat here.
you'll find it at your Spirit Academy. Um, and yeah, and then I'm Jessica Smalls on Facebook. Um, I'm fairly certain on Instagram, it's Spirit Academy Sarnia, I think. I can't remember if I went and changed that yet, but we're going through a bunch of branding changes and getting things all in line. So
Thank you. I've put your information here at your Spirit Academy for the manifestation circle that you have on the Mondays, right?
yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Oh, and
Right,
it's
guys. Mm-hmm.
it's yourspiritacademy.com.
Y.com. Fantastic. Great stuff. Jessica, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love your calming energy. It's a very nice way to go into the last session, which is yoga tonight. So I think it's been a nice sort of like a nice whirlwind today. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for your time and for
Thank you.
sharing your techniques. I wish you much love, light, and blessings, and hopefully we connect soon. Thank you so
Awesome.
much. All
Thanks
right,
so much.
guys. See you
Great
all
chat.
later. If you're staying for the next session, you guys can remain off camera and on mute, and we'll resume for yoga at 3 o'clock, which you're welcome to stay and do as well, Jessica, if you want to.
All
All right,
right.
guys. See everyone later. Bye.